بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب زدني علما.
Okay, the next thing we'll try to understand here, there is something called Puppet Manifest. Now, the Puppet Manifest are nothing but the configuration files. If you remember in the previous concepts, we have discussed about the configuration files, and these configuration files are nothing but whatever the configurations you want to apply to these end nodes. Probably we are going to group those set of commands with the help of some kind of scripting languages, and these configuration files will be pushed onto the nodes so that the configurations can be applied on the nodes from the master device. So this particular master is going to have those configuration files or define those configuration files, and then being pushed or pull method, whatever the method software is using here. Basically Puppet uses the pull model, so it sends out the configuration files to the end devices. Now these configurations can be anything depending upon what is the actual node. And let's say if I have these end nodes or Cisco devices, we can compare the configurations like maybe any kind of routing configurations, or maybe some ACL or IP addressing or NAT or whatever, the adding the VLANs. It can be anything. Probably each and every option, probably we call them as resources here. So it is collection of all these configurations in the configuration files, and technically we call them as manifest. Puppet manifest is a technical term used to define the configuration file. So it's the same thing, equivalent to configuration files concept, what we have covered in the basic concepts previously. And again, this Puppet manifest or the configuration files inside the Puppet software will be written in Ruby programming language. That is a kind of programming language used by the Puppet. Okay, so Ruby it uses, and mostly all these configuration files will have an extension of .pp. That's an extension. That's how you can identify in the Puppet software the configuration files. And they use the same Puppet coding style. It's a kind of Puppet dedicated coding style inside the Ruby. That's what we call as domain specific language, because even though different vendors uses the same Ruby language, but they have their own software defined specific defined format language. That's what domain specific language we call it as. Now, if you try to see some of the examples here, like this is one configuration file example used inside the Puppet. Now, this is relevant to NTP configurations, network time protocol, where you can have a common synchronized time. And here you can see there is a server with an IP address of 1234. That's an IP address of the server. And I want these devices, probably they should contact the server and synchronize the time. So there is a concept called NTP, if we have seen in the other networking concepts. And then there is a timer, specific timer, periodical timer set, and from which interface that particular, what will be the source interface from where the NTP request has to be sent between the nodes and the server. Okay, so this is the sample configuration file inside the Cisco iOS. And if you take one more example here, there is one more example which is again another configuration file, which is going to display the message or banner message, like we configure banner messages on the Cisco devices. That is something relevant to this. Likewise, if you take another example with Puppet software, now this is a specific OSPF configuration where we are creating an OSPF protocol in the first step here. And then in the second step, with specific to VRF, we are going to assign the cost, probably the cost values we are going to assign, the default cost values. And again, here you can see this example, again, you will see the interface status should be up. So that's the interface status. And I want that particular interface to be in the area 200 and the cost should be 200. So it is a little bit readable format. And this is how the coding style will go in the Puppet. And these are the sample configuration files, what you'll find inside the Puppet software. And technically we call it as a Puppet manifest